We are back again. Hello, Curtis, again. Thanks for sticking around with us. And we are back continuing our conversation. I know Tachi was laying down some serious knowledge. I don't know where we left off. I think she was talking about just racism in the process in regards to academia. So if you can just lead off from there, continue from there, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think we were talking about the fact of some of the different factors in terms of why departments aren't diverse. Yeah, racism is definitely part of the thing there, and it's a quote unquote ugly secret in academia. Because it's supposed to be the bastion of marketplace of ideas and free thinking. People confuse that with free thinking when it comes to everything, but it's still very much old boys club when it comes to faculty. So you see things like microaggressions that you're like, wow, do I have to deal with this for what you're paying me? If I'm going to deal with this, let me at least go to corporate where I know I'm going to make, more money. Because the work, the amount of pay, depending on the type of institution you're at and where you teach and what you teach, is not equivalent to the amount of time that you spend in there. And especially if you're the type of instructor or professor, like I am a very hands-on professor. I work with students. I take students on trips. So me being with students in Vegas for a week, 24 hours a day. That's like, more than 40-hour work week. So that's not something that they take into consideration often. And then you often see other professors who don't do those types of things at all. So it's not equivalent, but definitely, those are the types of things that, not only the institution expects from you, but students expect from you. When you are a professor of color, you get an inordinate amount of students that come to you for different things because you are of color. And so because of, like, for example, I'm young and I'm of color, everybody, students that weren't even my students that I'm like, who are you now? Will come to me because they heard that I X, Y, Z. And I love doing that. But again, that's a strain, that takes a lot out of you. And those are not expectations that are put on non-melanated male faculty members.
Yeah.
Excellent. Good stuff. Like to welcome Gabe and Kinte. Sorry, Kinte, the Get Vocal House, and also You Foresight is back on Periscope, and also on, of course, YouTube, Divine Right. So thank you so much for sticking in with us. Lia, anything you want to add at this present time? As usual, Dr. Tachi is dropping her knowledge bombs as usual.
Yeah, I actually did. I actually wanted to go down another wormhole, but on a similar topic, to what we just said in terms of, so if we're not seeing academics of color on the tenure track or in tenure positions, what's happening with the rise of the adjunct? Are we seeing more diversity in the adjunct ranks? Because it seems like obviously the barrier to entry as an adjunct professor is not as high as it is for being a tenure track professor in terms of the things that you need to do to get a position. So I'm curious, Tachi, if you've seen from your experience since you've taught in a variety of institutions, if this seems to be a thing or it's still also disproportionately non-melanated and male among the adjunct ranks too.
I don't have actual figures as to the melanation and the gender dynamics when it comes to adjuncts, but I do know this. There are still barriers to entry. There are so many people that they've tried to, just maybe fresh out of a program. And again, times have changed. The times where you could just call up a department. I remember like in the early 2000s, I decided I wanted to teach in New York City. I called your college. I'm like, hey, do you have, oh yeah, we got stuff available. Those days are gone. You have to go through the same rigorous channels that tenure track or full-time faculty would to do this for something
even
that is
less.
not for even less, because it's not promised. There's no guarantee that every semester you're going to have a class. So you could be on a trajectory for a while. They're like, oh, we don't have any classes or enough students. That's it. So you then don't have a job for that semester or however long they don't need you. It is at, kind of like an at will. They can let you go whenever, and they don't pay you enough at all. And there is a limitation on how many classes you can actually teach because of, for example, health insurance. So if you are full-time, they have to give you certain benefits. So this is how they keep you just under the radar. I'm like, oh, okay, well, we can only give X, Y, Z, which is why you have adjuncts that teach at 4 and 5 and 6 institutions to make up like kind of a full-time salary, and killing themselves, places like California where they're like all up and down the coast, the different colleges there because of that, or like around the perimeter in like Atlanta or whatever the case may be. So the answer is that I don't know what the statistics are. I would suspect that they are more diverse in terms of who teaches. However, there are fewer spots. They're not as many spots. It's not like years ago where you could just call up and get a position. It's a rigorous process, and you could apply to several schools and not hear anything, or they're like, oh, you become part of an adjunct pool. So you apply, and then when and if they need you, they call you.
Yeah, I had no idea what it was like, because I have had several colleagues do adjunct teaching, and they've been of color at various institutions, again, in the DC metro area. But everyone that I've spoken to has described kind of what you've said, but also that to make your money as an adjunct is basically as much as you're willing to work.
Yeah.
So you've got to work mad classes to get money, and you still don't have any benefits. So
no benefits, and you can't really afford to. So some schools may give you benefits, okay, but you have to pay for them. So how can you afford it on an adjunct salary to pay $400 a month in health insurance?
Exactly.
You can't.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to jump in here, and before I go any further, I want to say what's up to Dante. Thanks. And if anyone is watching this live on the Get Vocal platform, there is a seat open. So if you want to come in and hang out with Black Lady Magic live, please. It is a great experience. You won't regret it. So you're more than welcome to jump in. It's interesting, Tachi. I can't relate to this 100%, but I can relate to it sort of, because many years ago when I had hair, I was in the teaching profession. I was actually, if you can imagine this, I was a teacher's assistant in a public school. And back then, the cry was, we need so many black male teachers. We need so many black male teachers. And I tried to apply twice. I said I didn't want to be a lifelong applicant. I'm still here today. I think this not only is at academia level, but this is still also at public school, high school level. Would you agree? Either one of you on that one?
You want to go first?
Sure. I can say yes. I do think it's probably a little bit better on the teaching levels, only from what I've seen, because my spouse is an African-American male and he is a teacher. And he is, I like to call him like a black unicorn, because anytime he applies for a job, the school is like, oh, we have to take advantage of this applicant for multiple reasons. First and foremost, because he's a master teacher and he's good at what he does. But second and third, because he's male teaching at an elementary school level. And third, because he's black. So if they hire him, they've ticked off every EEO diversity box they need to tick, and they've gotten a master teacher out of it. So he's been fortunate because there's so few black male teachers at that level, elementary education. You'll see many more in secondary education. He has, I wouldn't say it's an advantage in applying. He still has to go through like everybody else, but I think it makes him stand out from the crowd because he is unique.
Absolutely. Okay. That's good. I want to say thank you for Tachi to inviting all her followers on Periscope. And I know JNF Enterprises, you're in here. Other people in here. Michael has come back. Thank you, Michael, for coming back on the Get Vocal platform. One of the things that's really interesting to me is, especially when it comes to publicly funded institutions, why there isn't diversity. I can somewhat see if with private funded institutions, I can see the case, but publicly funded. But again, publicly funded as the state control. So obviously the government makes the rules in regards to diversity in academia. I'm not sure. So Tachi or Leah, can you help me with that?
In terms of on the elementary and secondary school levels, I mean, there are written, I'd say, across the United States, in every state, some lip services paid to diversity. Whether or not it actually is affected or action is taken on the words that are written is, district to district from what I've seen. And it largely is also based on the demographic that is being served by the institution. So I feel like in DC, you may see more African-American teachers because a lot of their students are African-American. Where my husband teaches, there are other teachers of color, but not many. They're predominantly white and predominantly female. But that is the demographic that the school is in, and that's who they are also serving. So I think a lot of it is really subjective based on where you are, what the state and schools and individual school districts actually place value on. And a lot of it is based on the leadership, because you'll have these stories of these successful charter schools where they are really committed and serious about social inclusion and diversity, and they really take concrete steps and actions to make what they're saying a reality. And you will see it reflected in the student body and the faculty. But then there are other places where you just won't.
Tachi?
So can you rehash the question? Because I want to make sure
problem. Before we get there, on Periscope, You Foresight is saying, sounds like it's not what you know, but who you know and who lets you know it.
Exactly.
And then also joining us on Periscope, Shaka Tree One, Daryl W. Hutton, Nuji Bear, Mr. _ Cardiologic, Scotty B518. So lots of people joining all over the place, which is good. I'm just going back in regards to Tatiana, in regards to publicly funded academia institutions.
Okay.
Am I assuming wrong that since they're publicly funded, you may see more diversity, or is it because those publicly funded are controlled by the state, and then is it the legislature? Like, who makes the decisions on the diversity of a faculty?
Yeah, not necessarily that it's public, because I actually work for the state of Maryland now because I teach for the University of Maryland. So that's a state institution. I think each, while the Department of Education kind of has those things kind of in line, each institution, when they're hiring faculty, for example, they really, and, they have their EEO office, the Equal Opportunity Office, but, generally, for the most part on their own, they say that they are looking, that they encourage diverse people to apply for these things. Now, whether or not they mean it is a different case.
Exactly.
But that's a different case altogether. But they do say that, they're looking for diversity in terms of the faculty. And, this is why you have all these diversity officers at these universities trying to ensure these things. Again, whether or not, though, that is effective is a different case.
So when I hear diversity officers, it reminds me of, in the corporate world, they have their HR people. And those HR people are just more figureheads than actually people of authority.
HR is completely useless. Sorry for anybody that is HR out there, but completely useless.
And again, it also goes back to the point that your follower on, I think you said Periscope, said, it's not always about what you can do. It is about who you know. Because in some cases, if you do know somebody who happens to be in the HR office, they might put your application on top, or they might prioritize your application in the process so that you have a better chance of getting a job. So I agree with Dr. Chetachi that sometimes HR gets a bad rap and they can be totally ineffectual and useless. But I also think in some cases, if you have a ringer on the inside that knows you, a friend of yours, someone who's working in HR, and they know you're applying for that job, they can maybe put your application in a better position. But the thing is, how many of us actually know somebody in that job?
Well, for HR, that doesn't necessarily work for faculty because HR is not the one who makes the final determination of the hiring. That's more so the faculty and then the deans. And then, of course, it goes to like the provost and the president. So HR in that case really is like so you may have your HR representative on the staff faculty search committee, but they don't really have power when it comes to that. I don't know. There may be some institutions where HR has more power, but in my experience, they've just been on the sides on the committee as the HR representative, not really having any power. So to that point, I mean, this is kind of off the topic, but kind of not off the topic. Going back to what we were talking about before in terms of Dr. Vibe, why this happens, this lack of diversity. I think the big, just so you know, Leah, we can hear your mouse.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. The big thing also is that, and I'm just going to say it, I may ruffle feathers. You know, by now I really don't give two damns.
I know that.
I don't care.
I know that.
When you are looking, if you are intending to be a faculty member at a traditional institution, which means not an online institution, not a for-profit institution, but a traditional institution in the way we know it. Please don't be surprised if you don't get a call because you went to some online institution and got your PhD. Don't be surprised. I'm not trying to be, I am an academic snob, but I'm not trying to be an academic snob in this point. It's only because I've sat on committees, and I'm bringing this point up because sometimes we're so in love with the idea of having a PhD that we will go to ABC Center for Learning to get our PhD and not realize that it doesn't hold weight or water within the world that we're trying to get into within that field. So then you've spent all this money on ABC institution, and it doesn't mean a damn thing. I've seen people that, they went to what? Put them at the bottom of the pile. So please know this in search committees. Don't just be in such, especially with women of color and especially with Black women. We feel that the PhD is the end all and be all, and get as much education as you want. You may not need that PhD for what you want to do. So do the research, talk to people who are doing what you want to do. And are they getting PhDs? B, please be aware of the program you're going to and whether or not that is going to be a help or a hindrance to what you want to do. So I just wanted to put that in there because people will not tell them. These schools are not going to tell you because they want your money, my dear.
Yep, that's true.
Okay, let me just catch up here, Divine Right. I've got to catch up on some comments. She said, I had a teacher like that in grad school. She had to teach at various places and had a full-time job elsewhere because she didn't have enough hours to be full-time. She was an adjunct. She was running herself ragged just to make ends meet. Even in D.C., there is a need for Black male teachers in the elementary schools that aren't charter. I've had Black male friends who taught in places like D.C. public schools and left because of burnout and low pay.
Yep. And also, let's just be honest, those schools are sometimes some of the most stressful work environments to be in as a teacher of any color. Just because you're dealing with so much more than just educating a child. You're becoming a whole person to those kids, and it is a lot, and teachers aren't always given that type of training to handle things beyond the academic side.
So Dr. Tachi, in your experience, like sitting on boards and things like that, don't these people does the light bulb go on at all? Like, don't they get it? Or do they care?
Well, does who get it? In terms of diversity?
Well, isn't the subject brought up when it's all around these educators that diversity is here to stay, and why don't they let their educators mirror their population?
So again, it depends on who is on these hiring committees. If you have everybody who is cool with the status quo on the hiring committee, they're going to continue to hire the same individuals. So it takes that goes back to having diverse faculty. It's almost cyclical because, again, you don't sit on a hiring committee unless you are part of that faculty. And again, if you don't have diversity on the faculty, you get the same old, same old. So it takes, so for example, if I'm on a committee and doing things, be for damn sure I'm looking at everything. I don't only when I look at diversity, I'm not just looking at people of color. I'm looking in terms of diversity of thought, diversity in terms of background, different things that are diverse that will be the best for our department and best for the students. So it's all of that. At the same time, I know that it's not best for the students to see everybody who is teaching them looking exactly one way. It's not good. It's not cool. It's not helpful for their growth experience or for their education. So I do look at those things, and I look at, all right, but that's why I'm saying, please be careful of where you end up going to school and where you get your degree from in terms of whether or not that is going to be helpful for the endeavors that you want. What some people don't know is that, okay, well, they think all you need is a PhD to teach. And then they come to communication, which I get so annoyed. They think, oh, well, I could teach communication. My dear, you have an EDD. It's education. You can't teach communication. So everybody thinks they can teach communication. I'm like, no, ma'am, no, sir, you can't. So I think they're also misguided in terms of what they can do with the PhD that they actually do have. So there's not enough education on these departments are trying to get money because there's pressure on them now to bring in money to the university outside of what they're allotted. So how do they do that? All right, they accept students that come with these large grants, but they also, accept more students because they're going to get money that way. So some of them are not being as prudent as they could because they were trying to make money with that. So they're not sitting there trying to tell you, well, okay, this is not really what you want to do. Oh, yes, come on. We can make it fit and shape. And they make it fit and shape and it doesn't fit for you in the future. So that's another
case. And now you're out your
of
money too.
And then you're out of your money.
Broke.
And you're trying to adjunct somewhere.
All right. So let me just continue on. U4Sight says on Periscope, yes, the PhD hustle. Sometimes you actually have to go sit down in a classroom and learn it. He also says, I remember when colleges only had a black professor if he was teaching or they were teaching African-American studies.
Yeah, exactly.
Kinte is saying on Get Vocal, it's not in their best interest to have true diversity because they benefit from an unfair playing field. Tony says here, this may be a devil's advocate kind of question, but do you think there's more of a focus for people with, unquote, disabilities than more of a focus on people of color?
Oh, that's a good question. You mean in terms of hiring people with disabilities?
Yeah.
I think it's a very interesting question, and I would say that it's equally as bad for people with disabilities as it is for people of color. I think, just in my my experience. And again, there are all sorts of different disabilities. There are some disabilities that you can't see, so we don't know. But I would hasten to say that it's probably equally as bad when it comes to hiring people because that's part of diversity as well. Absolutely.
Just want to say a quick shout out to Grant _ Browning from the Brampton, Ontario area. Thank you so much for jumping in. Leah, you wanted to say something. Sorry to cut you.
Oh, I don't think so. It's okay.
You look like you're going to share something.
No, I'm just nodding because a lot of the points I wanted to make, Chachi's already making, so I'm nodding my agreement because I don't have to say it anymore.
Okay, so folks, if this is the first time you're catching Black Lady Magic live, a lot of times that you'll hear that line, that's exactly that I was going to say.
Yeah.
So they
or I agree with everything that she said.
And I agree with everything you say. So
there you go. And if you don't know, they're members of the same sorority too, believe it or not. So there you go.
And they both have roots in upstate New York, which is crazy. I was not expecting that connection.
Exactly.
So it goes so deep. But I was going to just say that I also want to make sure that we remember, and Dr. Chachi started to touch on this, is that when I talk about diversity in academia, I'm talking about big D diversity. I'm not just talking about racial diversity, though that is a problem. I am in total agreement with Dr. Chachi that in terms of big D diversity, I'm talking about we need gender diversity, we need sexual orientation diversity, we need racial diversity, we need religious diversity, we need different parts of the world. I would love to hear from a professor from another entire academic training and preparation from another country, because that perspective is one that maybe I won't get to hear and is very useful and has a lot more to add. I would love to hear from someone who studied in a non-traditional institution, or a professor who actually has more field experience than just theoretical, practical training where they get their PhD and then they go straight to teaching. And I'm like, where's the application part? You're just teaching me theory here. So I would love to hear from a wide variety of teachers. And I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that diversity is not only racial, and that is not just what I'm talking about here tonight. So.
Okay. Curtis on Get Vocal platform says education is another system among the rest of the systems that are struggling to stay afloat.
It's true, especially in the higher education, for sure.
Exactly.
It's business first, and education, if it happens, I feel like it's a byproduct. But in my opinion, the way universities operate now, they're very much just for profit businesses, and they only sustain themselves by bringing in more students, as Dr. Tachi said. There's less of an emphasis, I believe, being placed on actually educating students and giving them practical skills that will make them gainfully employed individuals in our societies, and more about just keeping themselves afloat and bringing in profit.
Tachi, I heard that. I felt the breath. I felt the breath. Go ahead. There's got to be some words behind that breath.
You know it.
To the detriment of the education of the students. And I mean, let me take this back a little bit farther or further, whichever the word is.
Yeah.
There's a problem also because students come into, because now, and I'm talking about even before graduate school, because now there's such an impetus on using the student as the sole source of funding for these institutions. Would I not just then, whosoever shall come to be educated, come on? There's a little bit of that too, that now we're taking in students who are a little bit unprepared for college work. So now if I'm teaching undergrads, have to sit there and do the work that your high school teacher should have done. I don't have time to sit there and teach you syntax and grammar, but because I'm also communication, I can't let it go. So now I'm doing double the work, because what they passed you through for in high school, and we're like, oh, well, we need some money, so we're going to accept you here. Now I have to sit there and do double the work. And yeah, I get salty, but I can't let it go because I need you to be prepared. But there's a disconnect between high school and college also that we need to address. So it starts from back there.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that is a huge concern. Yeah, go ahead, Tachi. I know you can say as much. You're on fire, so this is definitely up your alley. So just let it fly, let it rip, Doc.
Let me say this though. I don't want to make it seem like I'm dumping on high school teachers, because there's another thing. This is the educational system. When you're teaching to a test, and all you're doing is preparing students to pass the test so you can get that state funding, a lot of things are lost. And I understand your hands are tied because of that. So, it's a huge systemic problem that does not just start with the university. It starts from K through 12. Exactly. How the hell ever, what I won't do is sit there and do the work for somebody else when I'm not being paid. So if that's what you want me to do, if you now, instead of just preparing them for the work world, if you also want me to do syntax and grammar, then my friends, you better pay me whatever you were paying that high school teacher on top of my salary, because it's unfair.
Tachi, I'm curious about this because I've had a conversation in my circles, because higher education is part of what we do as diplomats, at least in my specific area, because one of the things that we try to do is support U.S. institutions by finding qualified international students to come to the United States to study. And one of the areas where we always talk about is preparation, college preparation, and what steps non-native English speakers, as an example, need to do in order to make themselves competitive for admission. And one of the things that we're seeing, a trend that's on the rise, and I'm wondering if you're seeing this, is that in many cases, international students are better prepared to be successful. Oh, yeah. They may not have the English in terms of being able to speak, and maybe the professor goes a little bit too fast, but if you give them a book, they know that thing inside and out, and they can write you a paper like nobody's business, and they get it quickly. They pick it up, so they're able to get right on beat. Whereas and I agree with Dr. Tachi again, not only from what she said, but from what I've seen with a spouse who is a teacher in these systems. He's taught in DC, he's taught in New York City, and he's taught in suburbia as well. So he sees the whole spectrum of public school. Our kids they're getting lost. They're getting lost because, exactly as Dr. Tachi said, these teachers are basically under threat that if they don't get a certain passage rate for these state mandatory, state and federal mandated tests, then they will lose funding. They could potentially lose their position. So there is no real opportunity for teachers to actually educate a child. They're preparing test takers. That's what they're doing. Okay, so and because these people can only take a test, they can't write and they can't get into college and be successful.
I'm sorry to try to interrupt. I didn't want to interrupt you, so my apologies, Leah, because you're on fire too. Before we get Dr. Tachi to respond, and there's a pile of questions going on here, so let me just catch up.
Let me scroll back over there.
Yeah, okay. So
I ain't gonna type none, but I'm gonna read.
So Dr. Tachi, Dr. G Hightower says hello to both of us.
Hey, Dr. Hightower.
And also this is Eileen, who myself and Dr. Tachi know. She's joined us on the Periscope side. There's a whole lot of things. So let me get some questions. So here's first question up from Curtis. Do you believe colleges are giving students passing grades and graduating students so it looks good on paper?
I don't know about colleges, because they got your money. You have to pay before you can get there. So whether you pass or not is really not in their interest. What's in their interest is getting that money. So once you've paid your tuition, whether you pass or fail, that's on you, the student. I feel like, of course, the institution wants to have the ability to say, yes, we have an 85 or 100% graduation rate. But as an outsider, Tachi can speak to this as an expert. I don't know that that's their primary motivation. Now, at the lower levels, absolutely. They want more students to graduate. They do. Because, that's how they measure success.
Tachi?
So I think it depends on a number of things. I agree with Leah, definitely. I think there are some other things that come into play here. I think there is a marked difference in that line of thinking when it comes to HBCUs versus PWIs. From my experience at an HBCU, there is and not every single professor feels like this, but there is a personal stake that is taken in your success because it is already expected that HBCUs are less than. So every, professors, etc., make it their business to make sure you understand. Now, if you act up, you're on your own. But because I've been trained in that HBCU way from grad school, with my students, no matter where I am, I'm like, what you won't do is get out there and say, Dr. Egrw taught you, because I'll tell them you're lying and that I never taught you if you get out there and act like an orangutan. And I'm dead serious with that one. So it depends on the type.
She's not claiming y'all. Don't be saying that, y'all.
No, I will not.
Claiming you.
Serious. She's very serious.
I am quick to disown. Act like an orangutan, I will disown you.
Yep.
But the one thing that I found is I've never had to do that with any student because I keep my foot on their neck while I'm there, and they appreciate it after the fact. Like they all know that I don't play. There was one, I'll tell you a quick story. When I was teaching for one university, and they had, I was just teaching a class, and it was all online. So there was something wrong with the online system. So they could not submit.
Register or something.
Yeah. They could not submit their assignment. So they were all calling the help desk or whatever. And I had called later to check on the problem. And the help desk person said, yeah, they were calling. And I said, well, I'm sure she'll let you. They said, they were like, oh no, she's not going to let us turn it in late. She doesn't.
No excuses.
So they knew I don't like excuses. They know that I don't play, but they also know that I love them and will defend them against anybody or anything. So years later, they tend to appreciate that. So, it depends on the type of institution. It depends on who the teacher is. But I really, for me, I really take a personal stake in my students' success because their success is also my success, as long as I've done everything in my power to make sure they succeed. Now, if you're an orangutan on your own, I can't help you.
Exactly. And just to qualify my point earlier, I don't think that I was speaking about individual professors, but I was thinking of universities as institutions in terms of their invested interest as to whether or not students are graduating. Obviously, I do think that professors do take it personally because you're learning from them. So, yeah.
Okay, so let me catch up on comments. They're flying like crazy. Big shout out to Durham Skyrider. Thank you so much for coming on and joining the epic conversation. Divine Right on YouTube is saying, during my first master's degree program, my only professor was of color from India. Other than him, every teacher was white male. Like Leah said, we need diversity across the board. She continues in saying, hands down, international students surpass our kids. It's beyond what our kids are learning. And she says, high school, I see students getting passing grades to get them out, and then they get to college and are ill prepared, especially athletes. They can't play high school sports without, quote, certain grades, unquote. Let me go back to the Get Vocal. And on Get Vocal, there is a question. Well, there's Anthony saying, I know if I ever go back to college or university, I'd love having a professor like Tachi.
Me too.
That's nice.
There you go.
Me too.
Tony also says, does the same go for, okay, another comment came back in, so I have to do here. Does the same go for diversity issue when it comes to private colleges, universities, religious-based ones versus public ones?
That's a good question. Do you mind if I take it first, Leah?
No, go. This is your world.
Okay. I think, again, it's really much dependent on the institution itself. So, well, I will say this. So, for example, religious-based institutions tend to do things a little bit differently sometimes than a public institution would, or a private institution that is not religious. They tend to be very governed by their mission, which is often very religious. So everything they do is governed by that religiosity of their mission. So, I mean, even down to the thing of, well, we want if it's a Protestant university. Well, we would really like to make sure that our faculty is Protestant, even though you can't really do that. They shape it or frame it in a way that reflects the values, for example, that Protestant. So in a sense, it's like, yeah, we want Protestant faculty as well. You know, same thing, something like a Brigham Young University in Utah. It is a Mormon university. Mm-hmm. There are all these rules that are going to be difficult for you to abide by if you're not Mormon. Exactly. So, you know, it kind of backdoor says, yeah, we really would prefer that our faculty be Mormon. So, you know, going to your point, I think it really depends. But if you're talking about a religious institution, their mission tends to govern everything they do, and their mission tends to be very rooted in whatever faith that institution is.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can only add from the perspective of someone who studied at two private PWI institutions that I think that they do place an emphasis and a value on diversity, and to the extent they can, at least in more recent times, I think they do make an effort to try to have big D diversity, but I still think in general, at least in the two institutions that I went to, it's still lacking. There's still a dearth, as Dr. Chachi really opened the conversation with, and it's really disheartening because the institutions that I had the privilege of attending have the money, have the ability to advertise. They can pick and choose who they want. They're institutions that people want to teach at and want to be associated with, so they can find the candidates that they claim they want to have. So, I mean, I would be lying if I didn't say I wasn't disappointed at the lack of change that has been reflected. I do think that recently at my undergraduate institution, we had a president who made it her mission to make my undergraduate institution one of the most diverse in its class, and it's a D1 school. But because of her efforts, the student body and some of the faculty in certain colleges and schools did start to be more reflective of American society. And what happened was that the ranking of that institution fell in the U.S. News and World Report of best colleges to go to, and it made people nervous, and they didn't renew her contract. And I think they lost that they lost someone who was a true visionary and someone who really walked the walk, and I deeply respect her for that. And it's to the school's loss, because the things that they are basing those rankings on, in my view, are not the things that matter.
No, superficial. Completely
right. So
superficial.
While the school for the years under her tenure as college president really did start to feel and look a lot like a microcosm or a mini, United States in the best ways possible, people were more worried about other things, and they were worried that now the institution was looking not as good as it used to. Why? The only thing that changed is the fact that the institution is now actually diverse. Instead of just saying that we value and appreciate diversity, the institution did something about it, and the status quo didn't like that. And so they didn't renew this individual's contract because the university dropped some rankings in that report, which is baseless anyway. And again, it was only an eight numbers or, 8 ranking drops. It was still in the top 50. So I'm like, and there's like almost 5,000 colleges and universities in the United States, and you're still top 50 and you upset? Come on.
May I add to that?
Jump in. Mm-hmm.
I think that there's going to have to be a day of reckoning with these institutions, because when you lack diversity, you also lack the ability to relate globally. And this is a global economy. That's number one. Everybody does not look like you in the rest of the world. In fact, most of the world does not look like a PWI. Most of the world is of color.
Exactly.
Most of the world, half of the world is female. So I think
more than half.
Yeah, more than half is
yes.
of the world is female. Exactly. So I think there's going to have to be a day of reckoning in terms of that. Number two, colleges and universities are not the end all be all like they used to be, because of the high, default rates on student loans, because of the high rates of educating. Students are finding other ways in the world besides just going to college or university. This is why you have these rise of for-profit institutions, of these technical and trade schools, of these courses that, charge much less money than if you went to go to get a degree, and that are taught by, people actually, for example, in the business world. So there are other ways of gaining your knowledge other than the traditional college and university, and that's competition for you. So if you don't realize that you need to diverse yourself up or diversify, you're going to be in danger of losing out to these alternative ways of gaining knowledge, which is already starting to happen.
Yep. And I'll add quickly to that in addition to the rise of the things that Tachi said, there's also a rise of this whole gap year phenomena and programs that support students for taking one gap or multiple gap years. And I think that there's also some attention needs to be paid to that space, because even though I think in today's world, what a high school diploma used to be 50 years ago, a bachelor's degree now is, and frankly, a master's degree. But I also think that when you are a new graduate with your master's degree, the first thing that the employer is going to ask you in an interview is, and what experience do you have? Mm-hmm. So I think that for most new entrants to the job market or the working world, having some actual real experience under your belt is almost as valuable, if not more valuable, than that piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
True. Another comment here from Periscope. This is Eileen says, I respect and appreciate Dr. Tachi's style with her students.
Thank you.
Man, it sounds like if you ever wanted to start an online course, you'd have more than enough people enrolling there, Dr. Tachi.
Oh, it's
I'll
coming.
be your TA.
It's coming. Don't worry. No, I got you. Yes, you will be my TA. Absolutely. But to my point, that's the thing. There are people like me that, I could decide, you know what? You people are paying me peanuts. I could go start my own stuff.
Exactly.
And you know what I'm saying? And I actually have like practical experience in media and stuff instead of somebody just learning the theory of it. So that's what they have to watch out for. Folks like me.
Exactly.
She's a coming. Watch out. She's going to just blindside you and just run you over.
So not only do they need to watch out for people like Tachi in terms of competition, but they also need to worry about the retention, because they have so few of Dr. Tachi's as it is. If they don't make their environments a place where she feels that she's getting what she needs as a member of faculty to continue to teach and produce in the way that she's producing, they're going to lose her and all those like her. And then they're going to back to having zero diversity and having to compete against somebody like Tachi, who is much more effective and can charge whatever she wants.
And you know what? You make an interesting point, because when we did a faculty search for a position that we had open, the candidate asked our chair, what keeps you up about the department at night? And the chair said that Tachi will find a position at another university.
Yep.
She said this.
See?
Wow.
So they realize, they know what you're doing. Even if they don't say, they know how valuable you are and the diversity you bring to the department. They know.
Exactly.
Well, this is good. Ladies, I hope you can stay on for a few more minutes, because there's a lady who just jumped in, LA, who also lives in Toronto with me. She's actually a registrar for the transitional year program.
See, the gap year program.
So LA, please jump in, because you and Tachi need to meet each other, because you're both educators. So if you can, please jump in, because she definitely has the same sort of black lady magic thought process as Tachi and Lia. So I'm hoping that, I hope she just jumped off. You better come back, because I wanted to make sure that she caught some of this. Ladies, this situation is not getting any better, and especially, and we don't want to get political here. We're just going to touch.
Somebody's coming.
Oh, yay.
Okay, let's see if LA is going to jump in here, because I'd like her to share her experiences about diversity and education.
There she is.
Hey there.
Yes.
Hi.
Hey, LA, how are you?
I'm exhausted. I feel like I have to be Wonder Woman.
You do.
With being a soul support parent and support. I'm not a soul support parent, but I am a single parent. I couldn't do it with all the other mothering that happens with my child and other fathering. So thanks out to all the supporters of my children.
Wonderful. Well, I'm glad you jumped.
Hi.
Yeah. So just want you to jump in here, because share with the people live here what you do. And I know you have some thoughts when it comes to diversity in academia.
Is there diversity in academia?
What? See?
So I'm actually going into my 10th year as the registrar and the sessional lecturer for the transitional year program at the University of Toronto. And we are an access and equity program. So I work with a lot of disadvantaged people who are looking for second chances to get into post-secondary education, sometimes third and fourth chances. People who have been in prison, people who are sole support parents, people who are newcomers to the country, LGBTQ, Black, African, Canadian, Indigenous, et cetera, et cetera. People with learning disabilities and mental health traumas and things like that. So this is why I look so tired. Because, but mostly because being one of the few minorities at the University of Toronto in my position, I have to extend myself to be able to support the community of people that feel safe in my presence, because they don't feel safe with other people. It's a very white institution, and when they do diversify, it's not necessarily Black. And they like to, and so these diversity policies, or they like to promote, a diverse workforce, but people of color can make up a diverse workforce. And when they're all Asian, let's say, is it really that diverse? It's maybe not white, but it's not necessarily diverse. But we all get encapsulated into these places, people of color, placements, and quite seriously, there's a stratification when it comes to race. And so it's the model minorities that get the positions that allow them to claim themselves as a diverse workforce. So as a worker who is situated at the bottom of that stratification, in terms of what I embody as a Black female, I definitely feel the pressure in so many different ways in that space. I often have to navigate the things that I say, decisions that I make. I silence myself quite a bit. I don't feel like I have the same mentoring opportunities. And this is, I don't know what you were talking about before, but this is just my experience. I definitely lack mentorship opportunities. And when I do happen to find another person of color or someone like myself, we're like crabs in a bucket. And where I would look to that person to help me, they actually end up hurting me. So that's my experience.
That's fantastic. Before Tachi and Lia, you respond or add on to what Ellie had to say, can you just give a little background on what each of you do professionally?
Go ahead, Tachi.
Oh, so sometimes I just want to say I just am, but I can't say that. Anyway,
I want to say that every day.
Can I just be? So I'm actually in the academy as well. I've since 2001 have been a professor of communication at various institutions. I currently am at the University of Maryland University College. That's one half of what I do, but I'm also very much a mass media practitioner. So I'm a media professor in addition to being a filmmaker, a media content producer, and a journalist. So the theoretical end, but I'm also very much the practical end.
Very nice.
Yeah, I probably should have gone before her because she's always so much more impressive than me. So
no, that's rubbish. That is
rubbish. Anyway, so I am a U.S. diplomat by day. And I've been doing that. I just had my 15th anniversary. So I did that basically coming straight out of school.
Wow.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yes, I'm on the path. So let's just see if I can survive current times is all I'll say. But by night, I am a blogger, a writer, an author, a speaker, mentor, coach, and all hats off to you as a single mom. I have 2 children and I am married. So I have the support of my spouse, thankfully. Yeah. And I actually have a sick child right here next to me right now. That's why I keep looking sideways every once in a while because she keeps turning horizontally and kicking me.
Right.
So I'm trying to keep the camera steady as her little foot keeps popping out. But see, all about work-life balance, right?
That's right.
Yes.
So I do those things. But in my work with the State Department, I'm on the career path where I could eventually become a diplomat or an ambassador. But my focus is in public affairs, communications, PR, speech writing, media, cultural exchange. I bring artists and speakers overseas to where I am. I send students from whatever country I'm in to institutions of higher learning in the United States and a whole bunch more, like a whole lot. All right, I will. We can do it. We'll do a tri-country thing. U.S., Canada, and I'll be going to Armenia next. So, and I'll be the boss. I'll be the boss this time. So.
Very nice.
I have a little more pull, and I have my own budget. So,
and somehow you're less interesting. You made the rest of us sound like chopped liver.
We should just hang up, Tachi.
I know, right? We should just leave now.
No, what we need to do is get our little cabal going and really make some changes here. That's what we need.
Dr. Vibe, how do you find all of these beautiful women, intelligent, powerful women?
That is the question because he has many.
He does.
He's found many.
I don't know if I like that answer, but I'll roll with it.
As guests on your show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
To be clear.
I'm gonna divert back to what Ellie shared with us about her environment and what Tachi and Lia do you have to respond, add on, relate to what she has said.
Yeah, I can speak as the non-academic, non-person who's worked in higher education, but I totally resonate and understand relate to everything that she says in terms of the whole having to wear a mask, having to measure her words, having to not be able to fully communicate, not necessarily feeling like she can find a mentor, finding 1 or 2 people that may look like her, and then those people end up being more damaging to her than supportive of her. Those are all, unfortunately, themes that I can personally relate to in my line of work, which is quasi-educational, but a little different. And it's unfortunate because there are so few of us. It's hard to get us in the door. And as we were talking about earlier, it's half of what you can do and more who you know. And then to have the people who you know be the ones that are dragging you down is always really, really hurtful, at least for me. I really take it personally.
Yeah.
On just the blackness level, like, why? Really? There's 2 of us in here. And there's like 50 people. Why are you going to mess with me? Like, we got to be in here together. I don't understand it.
Right.
But I do really resonate with that, and I really want to just express, even though I don't get to meet you in person, hopefully I will one day, that I'm so grateful to you for staying in the position and dealing with those challenges, but also being a resource to the students who obviously need you. Because how would it be for them if you weren't there? So
this is that exact
kudos to you.
Is why I stay. There's too many people.
Why I stay in the job that I do.
Get in. Yeah. Thank you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Before Tachi, you add on to that. This is Eileen says Armenia, and I think she is of Armenian background.
Oh, really? But yes.
And yes. Jiggy Mig says, Tatiana, hey girlie, how are you hosting and writing at the same time? Well, she's not hosting. She's a panelist. But
not just.
There you go. And yes, this Eileen says she is Lia. She is Armenian. So if you ever want some tips on Armenian, I could probably connect you to if you want.
I do.
Oh, how cool is that?
Yes, uzum sells as het.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll create a DM between both of you, and you can exchange yourselves. And this is Eileen, is an outstanding lady. Tachi and I both know of her from the master community man, Mario Armstrong.
Yes.
We're all part of his group. So yeah, this is Eileen, is outstanding and very, very happy. And this is Eileen said to you, Leah, very happy too. So there you go. So
do you know what I said to her? Do you want to know what I said?
I have no idea. Okay. How do I know?
What I said to her, I was like, hello. And then I said, I would love to be able to talk to you.
Oh,
okay.
Wow.
In Armenian. That's what I said. And then I said, please.
Wow.
There you go. So, and Jiggy Mig on Periscope says, yes, these women are beautiful. There you go.
Yay.
Beautiful. Also want to say on the Periscope side, joining in is I Can Do Day from Australia.
Hello. Hey, we are international. Yay.
Yes. Well, we've got U.S., Canada, Australia.
Soon to be Armenia too.
It says soon to be Armenia too.
Yeah.
So, I took so long there. Dr. Tachi, what would you like to add on what LA has shared with us?
It is not an unheard of story. Unfortunately, there are too many stories like this for people of color, particularly women of color in the academy. There are too many stories like this. I have to say that even though, as I said, there were, I had experienced microaggressions and things before, but I had more support than anything. And I think it goes with where you are and the type of institution that you're at. If you're at for example, at an Ivy or a very large, old institution, or an institution that's very research heavy and research based, you're going to feel maybe some more of this than you would at other types of institutions, simply because of the nature of the institution and how they make their money, right? So if research is a big thing, you're going to feel a lot of that. It just really depends. So for me, while I felt some, there wasn't a lot, and also it was my attitude towards things. This doesn't mean that other people can do this, but I know me, and this was me. My thing was like, oh, okay, then fire me. That was always my thing. I'm like, okay, well, I dare you then. But like sometimes, one time a student had said something, was not doing what they were supposed to do. And students, when they don't do what they're supposed to do, they always try to go above your head instead of work with you, because they're not doing what they're supposed to do. Exactly. And then so I wrote her back, and then I copied. I said, and you didn't do what you were supposed to do. So don't talk to anybody else, but unless you're doing your due diligence. And so, everybody's so afraid of the student. They're like, oh, but you really, I said, well, you know what? Then you all can fire me. And that was my thing, where I'm like, I know my worth, and at any other time, I know that I can make money off of my worth someplace else. Exactly. So if you get rid of me, guess what? God will protect me. So
exactly. The bottom line is, Tachi, they need you more than you need them.
Exactly.
That is the attitude
of that. That is the attitude you have to have.
You can still sleep.
Yes.
Sorry.
That's the attitude you have to have.
Okay.
And if you I'm sorry. If
she can hear you.
Okay, if you get if you get so caught up, and this is the thing, we have responsibilities, and often we feel like we have to deal with the rubbish because of the responsibilities we have. So I think sometimes we have to start to put ourselves, and it's very easy for me to say this, having like I don't have children or anything yet, and so it's very easy for me to say this, but we have to start to say to ourselves, how can we put ourselves in a position where it's like, well, you all can take the number 6 train to hell because I'm going someplace else. How can
and
we
I'll go
start
triple my salary in one step. So.
Exactly. Or, be in a position where even if my salary is not I'm okay. I think we have to start to prepare for those types of things, because if you don't, you are always beholden to the same oppressive system because you can't get out of it because you need them. I'm like, MF, I don't need you. Right? I don't need you. That's exactly how you have to be. And I think that's been part of my success in this, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't do this for 10 years and not have that same mentality.
I clearly have it too.
Yeah.
Okay, just before we go any further, we have actually someone special who has jumped on Periscope. I think she's still on. MP Selena Chavons.
Hey, Selena! I tell everybody, she's a part of my family.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes.
But I mean, it's not like I was at the family events, but
yes, she has. She just jumped on Periscope. I don't know if she's still on. I can double check if she is. Yes, she is. She is watching live right now. So, MP Selena Chavons, thank you so much for all you do. And everyone, that is someone you need to follow on Twitter and social media.
Yeah.
She is an
incredible. Give the handle. Find out from her the handle.
Her handle is at MP Selena. That's CELINA. Here, I'll put it actually in the chat. So definitely that is someone you need to follow on. But thank you so much. And there's a lady who has a huge responsibility. Wonderful family, wonderful husband. So I know she can relate with a lot that's being discussed right now. There you go.
Very nice.
So yeah.
Talk about a woman who knows what it's like to not have diversity in the workplace.
Yeah.
Wow.
Selena definitely knows.
Wow. Exactly. LA, anything else you want to share in regards to diversity and academia? And during our conversation, we've covered everything. Obviously, we've concentrated mainly on college and university, but we also have reached down to the high school and public school level too.
I think it's important to, when you're speaking about diversity, to really tease out what it means to be inclusive. And I don't know if you hit that area, because diversity in and of itself doesn't actually, it doesn't mean anything. It's kind of like access and equity. I might build a ramp for the wheelchair to get through to the door, which is great access. But if the door doesn't allow for the wheelchair to fit through, I'm not really being equitable. So diversity without mentioning inclusion would be where I would lead that conversation. And inclusion doesn't mean having Jamaica Day and having
exactly.
Tachi, do speak. After that, with that laugh, there has to be a comment behind it.
Oh God. I think, I remember being told I always tell people I'm Black 365 days of the year, so I don't ascribe to having a specific month in which to do things. If I want to put on a program, we could do it in March, April, May, whatever, Yeah. So I remember being asking, I was like, hey, there's this, dance troupe that I think would be really good. And somebody said, well, we can't do it now because it's not February. I'm sorry. So Black things can only happen during February. Is this what you're telling me? I had to say, I'm saying it with Nigeria. So you're telling me that we can only do Black things during February. Is that what you're telling me?
That is what they're telling you.
So
that's what they're telling you.
But, and I do understand where that comes from in terms of that's when you have funding to do things. But this is why there's a problem now, because we have compartmentalized culture.
Yes.
I am Black all the time. I want to see a dance troupe in January. Can we do that? Is that possible?
Yeah.
So,
And not on Martin Luther King birthday weekend either.
Oh.
Any other time.
It gets tiring because you're only allowed to, I guess, revel in your culture or revel in who you are 1 month out of the year. So March, if you're a woman, hooray for Women's History Month. October, I think, is Hispanic Heritage Month. Am I right? Is it October?
Yeah, September, yes. October.
September, October. Now you feel free to be Latino. I mean, I think the big thing has to be culture exists all the time. Let's make these institutions a microcosm of what our society is. And in society, Black people are not just Black in February. Women are not just women in March, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
So true. Exactly. Here. Wow.
Beautifully put. Oh my gosh, this has been LA. I'm glad we were on long enough to have you jump in because I know you're enjoying this.
Man,
yes, you Foresight says we are always talking about the word diversity, but where are the actions that go along with it?
Exactly, that's what I was saying before.
Yeah,
MP Selena says culture exists all the time, and she put a heart beside that.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
She appreciated what you just shared there, Dr. Tachi. Fantastic.
Awesome.
So how does this challenge get overcome, ladies?
To me, it goes back to another conversation we had earlier about representation. So it's not just waiting for these institutions to suddenly open the floodgates and say, okay, now all people of color and everybody who represents any sort of diversity come in here and work. But we have to actively go there. Like the conversation we had before that I hope we'll have soon about all of the people who are people of color who are so fed up with the political system in the United States that they ran for office themselves because they want to find themselves in positions where they can make a change and be different because they can't keep waiting for the system to do it for itself because it's not doing it. Right. And so I say the same thing, and I challenge people to go into higher education, become professors, go and teach, become administrators, go and do the important work that keeps these institutions moving forward, but just with your perspective, with your experience, with your face. And it's the same thing with diplomacy.
Let me ask on that though, Leah. Getting the education, how are they going to be able to get into those higher levels of academia when the people that make those decisions are still the same people?
I mean, we either got to wait for them to die or we got to force them out.
Sorry.
By flooding the field with our applications. Honestly, that's what I believe. Because a lot of these folks are, once you're in tenure track, you can be dead in your office and then they find you and wheel you out. So, but I do think that we should just, if we have higher numbers of us applying, then statistically it's more likely that more of us will be hired. Okay. If there's more of us,
okay. Well, now this is hardcore MP Selena. This is her regular. She's going, yes. Your experience, your face, and then she says, force them out.
See,
force them out. Yeah,
exactly.
And when I talk about crabs in the bucket, we need to reach back and bring our brothers and sisters up with us when we see opportunities.
Absolutely.
And the other thing I would add is that we need to also look at other people of color and other white people to be allies. Just because they are, your skin is not always your kin, as they say. And so, yes. So you need to find allies in all aspects.
I think that we also need to stop being so comfortable. Look, when you're a person of color in America, your life is already not very comfortable, okay? So when it comes to, for many of us, when it comes to looking at these positions, we need to, and I already explained why we do this, but guess what? You may make more difference for those students of color at the University of Iowa than you would at the University of Miami. Yeah, it's all good to be in New York City and amongst things, but maybe you're needed at University of Nebraska. You see what I'm saying? So I think part of the thing is we also like to be where we are comfortable. Understandably so. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to the University of Iowa. I'm not going to the University of Wyoming at Laramie. I'm not going to the University of Montana. I know this. But for those of us that can do this and can weather the storm, we could get, those are some of the places where they're looking to diversify their faculties. Look at those places. Look and say, all right, I'm looking to get a tenure track position. And guess what? That doesn't mean you have to stay there forever.
Exactly.
Even if you're only there for 3 years, that difference that you can make in 3 years and that experience you get under your belt may take you to that market that you want to be in. So I think we have to start to realize that, A, you probably are not going to be in the market, at the school, in the place you want to be in right off the bat. So be willing to weather the storm in places that are not as popular or not as comfortable just for a little while.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Just some more comments. MP Selena is on fire. She's going, yes, reach as we climb.
Exactly.
Yes to the allies. Loves this combo, and she has #truth.
Yes.
Love it.
And then on the YouTube side, we've got Divine Right saying, yes, she's going, thanks for Selena's handle, following her on Twitter. Wow, inclusion can be a whole convo in itself.
Absolutely.
My hats off to Sister LA, from one single mama to another. Thank you for what you are doing, and stay strong. I wear many hats too, and it's not easy, but we are needed out there. And then she goes, yes, LA, the crabs in the bucket mentality is horrid amongst Black women. Definitely need to diversify the reach and pull each other up.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. I love when we affirm one another, because we all know, but it's nice to hear it,
And I know Divine Right in real life, and she means it.
Oh, I believe it.
Yes. Yeah. You know what? Absolutely. We need to affirm each other more, but we also need to be truthful with one another, because it's also not helpful when you're like, oh yeah, that looks, and it's not good. So we need to, in love, correct each other, and in love, tell each other what the deal is, while affirming and lifting each other up. Because a bunch of yes people around you doesn't help either.
Exactly. And I will add to that same love fest and the affirming and the reaching back and pulling others up is we also need to not be afraid to be vulnerable with each other, because the reason why I think that there are so few of us in these positions too is that it's hard. We can't all manage the demands that these jobs place on us, coupled with our lives. So it really does take strong people. And we're definitely going to have moments when we're weak, moments when it's hard. And that's when you need to be able to be like, you know what, girl? I'm struggling. I need you right now. This is what's happening. I just need you to hear me. Like, let me vent. Let me, talk it out, get it out. And then I'm going to come back to fight another day. But I think that because we are so used to being used and abused and hurt by these institutions, and unfortunately by others who look like us, we're afraid to show weakness, because then we think that they're going to go for the blood, But I think you need to make sure that you have your good circle around you where you can be weak and you can let it out and not be afraid that it's going to be used to hurt you later on down the road. Because I think that's also important, and it's part of the love and the affirming and supporting.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Ladies, I have some good news for you.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, before MP Selena says, yes, be truthful in love. And then she wants each one of you your Twitter handles. So I'm going to have each one of you give your Twitter handle. She's on Periscope, but if you can give it verbally live right now, she would love to have them. She goes, also, she says, our stories of vulnerability allows others to build resistance.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly.
Amen.
So if you can, and well, right now, actually, this is Eileen says, MP Selena, I know Tachi's is at Tachiata, but she doesn't know the others yet. So I think each one of you ladies, to the whole audience out there, need to give your Twitter handle. So Tachi, give yours again.
I am at Tachiata, Tachiada.
Okay. I am at Lia World Travels. So that's at LIAWORLDTRAVELS, Lia World Travels.
Wonderful. And I'm at LAWADE 6, the number 6, LA Wade 6.
I'm about to follow you too, girl.
Oh,
yeah.
You got one new follower tonight.
What's weird is that I walked after my divorce, I fell apart. And I came off of Instagram and Twitter, and I had over 5,000 followers and all.
Oh my goodness!
But I just couldn't do it. And only within the last couple of months has Dr. Vibe inspired me to rejoin social media. He says I have something important to say, and he
You
has
do.
coached me, and it feels great to be back in the game in that sense, and I'm building slowly again, but it feels really good. And so, Dr. Vibe, thank you so much for resuscitating me.
It sounds very Dr. Vibe.
It is. It's very Dr. Vibe-ish. Absolutely.
I just want to, well, thank you, LA. I am very humbled, so thank you so much. And I believe in each one of you, though. That's why I pull you up and sometimes push you, because I know that all of you have a story.
True.
You have a story and you have something to offer bigger than where you are right now, and you're only going to get bigger and better. So I will one day say to each one of you, I knew you when.
Yeah.
It's going to be a mutual I knew you when.
Exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
I also want to shout out Cliff for joining, and also Ricardo McCrae. How are you and your wonderful family doing, Ricardo? So good to see you. Good to see you all. Ladies, anything else you want to add on to? Because usually Black Lady Magic don't go this late, but it's been such a fire conversation. And Lia, I really appreciate you with your little one that's not feeling so well. Hopefully the kicking has stopped.
Yes,
and,
she's rolled over now, so she's back asleep.
So, and everyone out there, do you have any questions for these incredible ladies? MP Selena has been just rolling for the last few minutes, and we appreciate that. Look at this. MP Selena saying, hey, Ricardo, how's my peanut? I don't know what that's all about. I'm just relaying the message. Anyone else have any comments for these outstanding ladies? There's great conversation, epic conversation going on as usual. Anyone else have any questions?
I saw one person named Michael earlier ask me where I am. And I just wanted to say right now I'm in the DC metro area. I just was in Bolivia and I'm going to Armenia next. And I saw that you said you were in Qatar, and I served in the Middle East and I do speak Arabic and I've been to Qatar. And so you're a lucky man. It's a nice place to be. So I just wanted to make sure I answered his question before we move on.
Yes, and MP Selena said that Ricardo's baby boy is her peanut. That's what she said.
How sweet.
So there you go. And of course, Ricardo's gone now, so I can't do anything about that. But that's
maybe he'll catch it on the replay.
There you go. Michael is saying, I just want to say you ladies rock.
Oh,
yay, thank
Michael.
you.
Michael.
Well, this is fantastic. I guess for Tachi and LA, if you had your dream when it comes to education, what would it be? What would you, if education was to be right, what would it look like for both of you?
LA, I'm going to let you go first.
Oh, you're so kind.
Oh, you're welcome. No problem.
Well, when I work with a very particular group of people, and so what I notice about them the most is that they need empowerment. They need to understand that education is a conversation and that their experience matters and that there are many ways of knowing it, to affirm them in understanding that it's not about leaving who you were behind. It's about extracting the parts of you that empower you to keep moving forward. And so, and so education is about, it's a negotiated response. You either agree with the things that are out there that you're learning, you disagree, or there's a negotiation of sorts. But it's always done not with a deficit within yourself, but always with the knowledge that you have something valuable to add to that conversation.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Powerful
After
words.
a long day, that's outstanding.
Yes. I was like, please tell me more. I'm listening.
I think that I'd like to see a shifting. I understand that now higher ed has shifted to, it's almost it is a training ground. It's a trade school in terms of you're getting this because you're getting a job. Right. And I'd like to see a shift back again to the knowledge for knowledge sake. There is such beauty in knowing, and like you were just talking about this knowing, this empirical a sense of knowing about the world and the people in the world, and learning critical thinking skills, because that sets the ground for every bloody thing you do. The problems we have now are lack of critical thinking skills completely. And I think college initially was that place where you gained that sense of how to think critically. But because we're so focused on, we got to get out, you got out in 4 years so you could get a job, and understandably so because of the cost. But I think there needs to be a rehash of knowledge, and the beauty of the journey of knowledge, and not just the end result. Because when you miss that journey, you are missing critical things that you need at the end result. This is why you can have a whole bunch of foolish people that get these jobs and don't know a damn thing except how to do one thing, because they missed everything else in that journey. So I think that's what I would like to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Leah, what would you like to see when it comes to higher education?
Well, the same thing that I always say when anyone asks me any questions related to higher education, at least in the United States, that we need to have universal education, period. Because I think that we've created a horrible situation for ourselves that's not going to be sustainable over time in terms of the costs and the crippling debt that our newly graduated individuals have when they go into the workforce. But also, I would like to have primary and secondary institutions in the United States actually have the freedom to instill and plant the seeds of these future critical thinkers by giving them the skills that they need to succeed in college, whether they go directly from secondary school into college, or whether they choose to get some experience, travel, do a gap year, or do something else, or if they go see LA and transition their way back in. But just knowing that at their primary and secondary levels that they have been adequately prepared for success, that's what I want to see. I want to see universal higher education in the United States, and I want to see our lower institutions basically given the permissions and freedoms and resources they need to be able to actually prepare our young kids for success.
Absolutely.
Just some comments going on here. Tony's saying, amen. There are too many, quote, educated idiots, unquote, in the world because they aren't taught how to think critically. Michael is saying, true. I was a college football player, so the focus was practice, game. And so, and then he said, go do your studying.
Exactly.
So definitely a lot of people here.
Wrong order there.
Cliff says, amen. Oh, this is Eileen is saying, where she is in California, 2 colleges, Modesto and Sacramento, just closed today with no notice.
Oh my gosh.
That's crazy. What?
Higher ed is they're it's under siege. This is why you have accepting a whole bunch of students who don't necessarily belong in a particular program, or not don't belong but aren't ready, because they're trying to raise all this funding. Education is really expensive. So I think there needs to be a rethinking in terms of what else needs to happen. You need to rethink higher ed. This model now is not the way to go. And it's been shown. So you need to do something and rethink somehow. And I agree with everything that the both of you said, in terms of there needs to be some sort of something universal, even if it doesn't look like college or university, because that's not everybody's path. And I understand that, but there damn for sure needs to be some sort of training ground, because everybody needs training, whether it's college or university or something else. And I refuse to accept otherwise.
Yes, and let's not underestimate the trades. We need to have more apprenticeship programs for people of color, because they seem to be dominated by a particular group, or maybe two.
And
I'm not.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, sorry. No, I was just going to say because I'm not going to fix my refrigerator. I don't know how.
Exactly.
I'm not going to fix the AC. I don't know how, nor do I have a desire to learn how. So,
but you want your AC working though, right? So
damn for sure. I live in Florida. So we need those things. Those are very specialized skills that we need.
Yeah.
And the thing that I was going to jump in and say is that I missed our session last week, our Black Lady Magic, because I supported a mentee of mine who was featured in a a brand new documentary entitled Unlikely, that I really want all of you here and all of you in the audience to try to see and support and find opportunities to show it, because it talks exactly about this issue, about the fact that the higher education system in the United States as it exists now is an archaic system that no longer works for today's learner. And even today, today's learner isn't necessarily the 18-year-old right out of high school. It's someone who can't necessarily afford education right now. So they go out into the work world, they work for a while, they have some experience, they now know what they want to do because they've lived a little bit and have this hyper intense focus about what they want to do and what they need to get there. And they come back to school and they have the drive, the ambition, but they don't have the money. And this documentary is amazing. It was supported by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and LeBron James is also a benefactor of the film because part of the film is based in Dayton, where he's from. And so it talks exactly about these alternative education programs that we're starting to see in onesies and twosies across the United States that are thinking in a way that I think should be the way we are all starting to think about what higher education looks like in the United States and Canada, frankly, in terms of just providing these alternative educational methods to get to the same result, but not by the same path. Anyway, so the name of the film is Unlikely.
Yes.
So you can Google it. It's just called Unlikely and the basis of that is the narrator of the film is a graduate of Columbia University, and she's working in the admissions office. And the way that they sort of classify applicants when they come in is they'll put an L for likely, they'll put an M for maybe a mid-rank, and then they'll put a U for unlikely. And the majority of the applicants end up getting a U because the majority of applicants to an institution like a Columbia or a Harvard or a Princeton are not going to get in.
Wow.
And those are even the people who do have the qualifications and all of those things. So it's not meant for people like us. So I really highly encourage the film.
Thank you, Ricardo. If you want the link, it is there. Ricardo just put it in the comments section.
Thank you. It is a wonderful film. And I was able to go to the DC showing of it last week
wonderful.
because my mentee is one of the 5 featured stories.
How wonderful. You see this?
Yeah. And that's why we postponed this beautiful, wonderful talk to tonight. But it was meant to be because I was able to support him and we got to meet LA this week. And who knows if she would have been available last week. So it happened for a reason. I'm going to say that now. I'm going to claim that now, Dr. Vibe. You see? It meant to be.
So hold on a second here. Just want to update here. MP Selena said, join their notifications so that I can get notices when the film comes out and likely.
Yes.
What else here? Yeah, so that's more. Let me just
the
check.
film is looking for venues for showings. They're looking for opportunities to get it to as many audiences as possible because there was sufficient funding to create and produce the film, but not so much on the PR side. So anything that we can do informally within our institutions of higher education, having conversations, whatever, please do it. They will give the film to you. They will make it accessible for you. It's a great, amazing film, and it's an important topic that we really all need to be paying attention to.
Dr. Bai, please connect us so that I can arrange a show at U of T.
I will.
And I can also put, if you guys do it, I can put you in touch with my mentee who maybe he can webinar in and you guys can like ask him questions.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
And I know he would love to do it because he's very passionate about the subject because he's one of the few success stories, which is good for him, but makes me feel sad because he's not the average.
Wow.
I'll make sure of all that.
Prior to also, in terms of education, is we don't want to forget the incarcerated people.
Absolutely.
I'm working really hard to try and get the transitional year program at U of T to work with incarcerated individuals, either on their way out or some type of correspondence, because as you know, they can't go online. And so if I have the professors that are willing to do this work, we want to be able to reach people so that when they come out, they have a lot more to look forward to.
Wow, this is amazing. So much wonderful stuff is happening. Just going to go back onto the YouTube end. Divine Red says she just followed you to LA, and she says that this conversation is epic. Thank you, Black Lady Magic.
Yay!
I am telling you, this is wonderful. So much has happened. So many people are getting introduced to each other, and so many good people with good hearts are getting introduced with each other. Let's see what else is going on here. I think we're going to start winding it down. I didn't know it was going to go so long, but it just organically has just gone on for a while.
Yeah.
This has been wonderful. And Leah, again, thank your young one for allowing you to keep on.
Yeah, she fell asleep again, so.
It's all good. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to wind down with closing comments. So first off, I will let LA give some final.
It's usually me, so you got the hot seat tonight, girl.
Yeah, well, you're the newbie. You're the newbie.
So closing.
Yeah. Any final thoughts?
Oh man. Well, diversity and inclusion is my final thought. Coinciding with access and equity. If the equity conversation is also not brought forth when we're thinking about all the diversity that we want to bring in, we're really falling short of assisting people where they are and trying to get them to where they're going. That's my final thought.
And where can people contact you?
Well, they can definitely find me at the University of Toronto at I can even give that phone number out over the line. It's 416-978-7832. My email is typ.registrar@utoronto.ca. But on Twitter, you can find me at LAWADE, so LA Wade and the number 6 on Twitter. And on Instagram, they can find me at This Is LA Wade. Yeah.
Okay. Next up, Lia.
May. So thank you, LA, for being here. So I wasn't the first one doing that. Now I can be second. So you can find me. Well, first, before you can find me, my final thought is just going back to what I said, that diversity is more than just racial diversity. And when I'm talking about diversity and social inclusion, I'm just talking about a change from the status quo, which isn't to necessarily exclude the status quo. It's just to diminish it a little bit and allow room and space for everybody else to come in and offer what they have. Because I think it will be for the betterment of higher educational institutions as well as the students. And that's really what it's supposed to be about. And then I'll just reiterate my earlier point that I really do hope in the future that we will see more alternative education programs that don't leave anyone out. Folks that can't afford the educational system as it currently exists, folks that have been incarcerated but still have the desire to learn and want to do something with themselves and want to educate themselves. I want those opportunities to exist. And then I do think that the United States, if we really want to call ourselves a first world country and a leading country, we need to get universal education. And we need to make it possible for our primary and secondary educators to focus again on teaching and educating the whole student and not just focusing on teaching to a test, because it clearly isn't working. That said, you can reach me at Lia World Traveler on everything. That's LIAWORLDTRAVELER, Lia World Traveler. At my blog, on Facebook, and on Instagram as Lia World Traveler, and at Twitter, which is the only handle that's different, you can find me at Lia World Travels. So it ends in an S. When we finish, I'll try to type it into the comments. I won't do it now since apparently you can hear me when I type, but I'll do it at the end of the conversation.
It's okay.
So then you can see my handles there. But if you see my name, Lia World Traveler, you can find me there across social media.
Tachi?
So 3 things. A, self-care. When you are a member of the Academy and you are a person of color, particularly a woman of color, think about self-care. If you are broke down and tore down, all of this is for naught if you're not thinking about yourself. So put yourself first when it comes to that. We so often put everybody else first. Put yourself first. B, I'll go back to the point of we need more of a melanated presence. We need more diversity and inclusion in higher ed. But before you go and get your PhD, ask yourself, do you really need this for what it is you want to do before you incur more debt? Also, when you do go and do that, make sure it's in the field that you really want to teach in, because you can't teach in one field, like I said, communication, and then you have an EDD. It is not equivalent. So know that whatever field you get your PhD in, that's where you're probably going to be teaching, maybe, or some related field. So don't think you could just get any PhD. Also, talk to other people that have PhDs in the area you want to get into and ask them what they did. Don't just go by what one department is saying, because remember, some of these departments are trying to get you in because they're trying to make money. So they'll tell you any number of things.
Exactly.
So actually go and talk to some people that have done that. And also prepare yourself for what else can I do with a PhD if I cannot get into the tenure track position that I want. What else can I do? Don't wait until it's too late. I'm a huge advocate for that.
And we know it's not communications, right, Tachi?
Hell no, it's not communication. You can't. Not everybody can do communication.
I just wanted you to clarify that one more time. That's why I had brought that
Exactly. If you come to me asking for a job for communication and your degree is in French, I'm going to tell you no. So,
thank you.
And how can people touch base with you, Tachi?
So I am, because you're going to get me if I don't say this, every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific on Periscope and Facebook Live, and also WJMSradio.com. You can find me on Mediascope, where I talk all things media, tech, and pop culture, together with my producer, MC Curtis. On Tuesdays on WJMS, you can hear me and Kevin, my co-host on TV Channeling, where we talk TV reviews, TV, film, and entertainment news. You can also find that same podcast on all major podcasting platforms. So if you want to reach me directly, get me on Twitter at Tachiada, Tachiada.
Tachi, you got this down pat now.
Yeah.
I have no choice. You forced my hands. Yep.
I love it.
No, this is all good. And myself, I'm just going to keep it short and sweet. If you want to know about Dr. Vibe, just go to the website, thedrvibeshow.com. If you want to listen to audio replays of my epic conversations, go to your favorite podcasting place, whether it's Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio. I'm even on Amazon Alexa. So there you go. So that, and then if you want to catch replays of these type of conversations, go to YouTube. Put in the search engine the DRVIBESHOW or DR period VIBESHOW. You'll catch about 470 replays. I'm going to do a quick roll call of everyone I think that came on tonight. If I missed your name, my apologies. Curtis, Gabe, Kinte. Let's see. Who else? So Steph. We've got Anthony, Michael. We've got, who else? I got scrolling down. Patricia, Durham Skyrider. We've got Ricardo. We've got, I think that covers everybody. Michael, I think I said Michael, that's everyone.
You missed Cliff. Dante and Cliff.
Dante and Cliff, that's everyone on the Get Vocal. On the Periscope, those who are still on, Eileen, Tachiada, Los Angeles. There's also U Foresight, MP Selena, and then Electric Jiggy Janet. All right. And there's a few others, but I don't got the time to go through all of it. Sorry. Oh, JNF Enterprises. That's it. And then the one person on YouTube, good old Divine Right.
Nice.
Thank you so much, everybody, for another epic conversation. Next scheduled epic conversation, I'm supposed to be on tomorrow night with Miss LA if she's going to be available.
I'm done.
Yay!
Nice.
And what is it? What is the conversation topic?
We are talking about whether or not there is the elimination of the black male hue in particular that is going to become extinct. Are they endangered species? Mm-hmm. Is the black male an endangered species, specifically darker melanated black men?
Interesting.
Take a look around at the media. Tell me if you see them being advertised. Because what I do see them being advertised as killed by the police, incarcerated, or they are a part of the LGBTQ community, which probably means that they're not going to be procreating. And then there's, to coincide with that may not seem related, is the fact that black women seem to be more and more on the increase with infertility. So if Black women are no longer having children and Black men are either dead, in jail, or gay, what's going to happen in a few years? We are definitely going to create a more diverse pigmentation, but is the dark hue going to be a part of that? That's what we'll be discussing tomorrow.
And what time are we going to be on?
I believe 10 p.m.
So you're going for, okay, so we're going for 10 p.m. Okay, so to check us out tomorrow night. I'm going to put the post up on the Get Vocal platform. We're just going to get a confirmation of the title and check out Get Vocal, or just follow us on Twitter, myself in LA, and you'll get all the.
Shout out Sojay Soul.
Sojay Soul.
And what about our MP Selena?
Oh, I did
earlier. Okay, just want to make sure.
I did, and I'm sure that you're probably all following her now, because I think she's all following you.
Fantastic.
And bless you. And Michael says he's good. And Michael says he's going to be there for tomorrow night's epic conversation at 10 p.m.
Wonderful.
All right. And also, I want to say hello. Quick shout out to Bobby. Quick shout out to J-Mog. I think I've got everybody covered. As I like to say, you're blessed and highly favored. A magnet for miracles, a solution for someone's problem. And I like to say, live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Also, sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. And finally, block assumptions. Thank you, everybody. And Black Lady Magic will be back at 9 o'clock next Wednesday, talking about the women who've been elected in the midterms. What changes can they make for America? Be well. God bless. Keep the faith. And if you're going to stay on vocal, we have a little bit of an after show. Bye-bye.
Bye.